Welcome back to Uprise EHR Tutorials. We're going to take a look at a detailed review of physical exam. Physical exam is the heart of Smart Touch, and Uprise is built around coded terminology for government compliance, audit proofing, and connectivity to the Health Information Exchange, bringing you more patients. Moreover, ease of use is accomplished with Smart Touch's proprietary technology that turns a few selections into a cascade of events that automates exam documentation, coding, lab orders, invoicing, and claims. In fact, staffing demands are reduced or even eliminated in the back office with Smart Touch. It's what I like to call close the exam and go home. With Uprise, you just close the exam and invoicing displays all the line items linked together with the correct CPT ICD pairs and quantities assigned to the correct insurance company and code safe checked for proper billing compliance. It's like having a coding expert in the exam room. When the invoice is posted, so is the claim, and it's automatically uploaded to the clearinghouse, all without any staff intervention. Smart Touch is an industry first and the key to making your practice more profitable and getting you home sooner, enjoying your family and life. I'm excited to show you Smart Touch, and I'm hoping you'll like it too and join the uprising. While we'll dive into a detailed review of physical exam, don't sweat the details. Uprise EHR is very intuitive, and you'll be able to easily navigate your exams with minimal training. Let's look at the physical exam group menu. It contains the category and favorites selection buttons, the history of problems icon, and the all other remaining ophthalmic conditions reviewed as normal radio button. The categories selection buttons contains subcategory problems for the external exam, the anterior segment exam, the posterior segment exam, systemic evaluation, and other conditions and disorders. To process problems by category, just select the abnormal subcategory items and select Next or Finish to process. The subcategory selections right here display most ICDs associated with that tissue or disorder, with favorites at the top and are user-defined. Now they come with pre-selected default favorites, but you can change them. You can scroll and select from the displayed list of favorites or the total list, or you can smart search and select from a shorter list and process. The advanced selection button is for items not found in the subcategory list. You'll find most problems in the list, but if you find something that's missing, just let us know and we can add it to the category. When you go to select, you can choose from the user-defined favorites advanced list, or you can smart search on the total ICD catalog by searching on the code or the description. If you find something that you like, you can mark it as a favorite, you can select it, and you can process the new problem menu. Most of the time though, you're just going to select from the subcategory favorites list, update the status and severity, and select Finish. I would like to make a special note about the systemic category, because the EHR was originally designed for Mayo Clinic's small practice providers. We can take advantage of the rich systemic and physical exam support in Uprise. We have defined for optometry and ophthalmology the head and neck, headache, and systemic subcategories. These categories have associated common ocular-related ICDs with user-defined favorites and annotation tools. Let's take a look at the associated annotation tools. For headache, we've got these right here. For head and neck, we have those right there. For headache, we have these right here. And for systemic, we have these annotation tools. A special note, blood pressure and BMI ICDs will display for MIPS automatically in assessment for the blood pressure and obesity codes if the blood pressure measurement and the height and weight measurements are taken in the vitals. The Favorites selection button is an all-in-one place for problem selection. The Advanced button with Advanced Specific Favorites list is most useful for add-on ICDs once category selections have been processed, so you don't have to process all ICDs just to add on one problem. So for instance, if you get to the end of the exam and you just need to add one problem, you can do it through the Favorites button, adding one and only processing the one instead of having to process everything all over again. It can also be useful for accessing any common ICDs across all the categories. It can also be useful for adding unusual ICDs or selecting the underdosing and non-compliant ICDs. You can even select them as favorites, putting them right in here for easy access. Either way, you can search, select, and process the main category or the advanced category selections, marking them as favorites, and marking them as favorites won't affect the category favorites in the main categories. The All Other Remaining Ophthalmic Conditions Reviewed as Normal radio button can be found in the Physical Exam Group menu and can be selected right here, or can be found in the Categories selection group right here. And it selects the remaining exterior, anterior, posterior findings as normal with one click. Of course, if you choose, you can select each individual item normal, or you can select all other normals in each category and select them normal by category as you examine them. Now, the normal findings, of course, are going to display in the user interface with the green arrows, and the specific details will be found in the audit documentation letter behind the user interface. So let's go look at that. You can go up here and find a letter, and go down and find one where you have the physical exam group checked in it, and check the full template. You can go down and take a look at it, and we'll see the normal exam finding language. And here it is. So you'll find the normal findings for the physical exam findings here for the external, the anterior, and the posterior. And under external, you'll see here that we have EOMs, and you'll also see here that the motility and the basic sensory-motor examining findings are normal. We also have eyelids, lacrimal, pupils, and neuro, and here you'll note that we have the gross visual fields and the pupils as normal, so that you don't have to go in and do confrontations, and you don't have to go in and do separate motility documentations in the other findings unless you just want some extra work to do, or you want additional documentation supporting that you did those things for workflow reasons. And of course, you can see here the anterior findings are for conjunctiva, cornea, iris chamber, and sclera. And then we have the posterior normal findings for macula, optic nerve, retina choroid, and vitreous. The selection box for all other remaining ophthalmic conditions reviewed as normal can be done right here, and this makes well vision exams super easy to document. Combined with manifest refraction automatically displaying vision ICDs, it's what I like to call the one-touch eye exam. The reason that we don't display normal findings in the physical exam group is so that we don't trash up the user interface with normal findings that we don't really need to see for clinical decision support. Allowing the abnormal findings to display only here allows you to focus on the things that you need to look at for proper clinical decision making. Of course, looking at the normal exam findings is just a matter of clicking the category selection and viewing the green arrows. And of course, like we saw earlier, you can go into the exam print icons to see the specific language. The history icon can be used to add and update past problems. Here you can review and select findings that are relevant for the current exam. You can update status and severity for each item and select Done. And the best practice is to process the history on most exams to keep the problem list up to date. The Process History button, the Category and Favorites selection buttons can be done in any order that suits your workflow. Now, the history icon is particularly useful for follow-up exams. I like to look at the problem code and the date to select the problems that I'm addressing for the current exam. Let's review the category and favorite selection buttons in the physical exam group menu. Close saves the menu selections without processing. The neuropsych button provides a documentation tool for orientation and mood. It's particularly helpful for the 99,000 evaluation and management services. The dilation button documents dilation and medications administered and contraindications and remarks. Of note, the contraindication and remarks triggers MIPS numerators, so be sure to document these options. The default dilated button provides a single selection option for dilation drops, route, techniques, and instruments that can be set up in the EHR configuration menu. The Vitals button provides quick access to the Vitals menu while in the physical exam. It's particularly helpful for adding cup to disc ratios if you're adding them manually during the physical exam. The next button processes the selected subcategory items, and the Finish button will save and complete the physical exam. The all other remaining ophthalmic conditions reviewed as normal can be selected before or after selecting the abnormal findings. For normal exams, it provides a one-click option for external, anterior, posterior exam findings. Remember, the green check marks, lets you see what's normal in the user interface with details displayed in the exam print templates. The green check marks are for normal findings. The red X is for abnormal findings. And here you can mark subcategory favorites. Here you can also select right eye or left eye or both eyes, or you can select the right eye and the left eye. If the right eye and the left eye are selected, the findings will display in the physical exam separately, but will display as bilateral in the coding for bilateral codes so that it complies with ICD coding guidelines. The code detail window right here displays the description and structure details. A particular note is SNOMED CT codes. If you have defaulted SNOMED CT codes, they'll display right here. The SNOMED CT defaults can be set up in the assessment area. The Google Clinical Decision Support icon gives you access to images and treatment protocols in real time during the exam. I like to use it for patient demonstration and conditions for which I'm not familiar or have questions about the most recent treatment options. The annotation pencil can be used to document normal and abnormal findings. If you select the green check mark and the annotation pencil, it allows documentations of findings without any associated problem ICD codes. I find it particularly helpful in explaining things to patients with drawings when I don't want to document abnormal findings. When the annotation pencil is selected, the red X will automatically display. This allows annotation of problems with ICD codes. Now let's take a detailed look at the problem selection process for category selections, the one you will likely use the most often. In the category selection, select the category items that are abnormal, then select Next to process. The category list will contain subcategory selection list items with user-defined favorites at the top. You can mark or unmark these favorites as needed. You can scroll and select from the list of the favorites or the non-favorites, or you can smart search the advanced list up here and select from that list. And as we saw earlier, we have your code details arrow box here so that you can see code and description details. Mainly, you can use it to look at the SNOMED CT code and if there is one, because that's what displays in all the clinical support documents and the CCDs and patient communications. And if you do want to put one there, you can go to the assessment and add and update it there. And also, as a reminder, we've got the Google Clinical Decision Support document button here so that you can have instant clinical decision support at the point of care. You're looking at both images and papers and any kind of research and treatment protocols that you can find in Google. The Category List Advanced button with advanced specific favorites can be used for ICDs not found in the subcategory list. There's not many of them, but if you do find them, this advanced button contains any ICD favorites across all categories. You can scroll and select from a favorite, or you can smart search right here from a complete list of ICDs by code or description. And here you can select the problem for processing, and you can mark it as a favorite as you desire. Let's look at the abnormal selection options. Here we have on the right eye, the severity options are mild, moderate, and severe. And generally speaking, the treatment code mapping options in the mild area are for supportive type protocols. The moderate selections are for special testing type protocols, and the severe selections are for referral or surgical selection options. And there are obviously going to be exceptions for many conditions, but as a general rule of thumb, that's what you want to think about. Now, the type of the finding can be a finding only or a diagnosis. The finding only will not display in the assessment or coding. The diagnosis will, of course, display in the assessment. And then we've got status. It can be new, stable, improved, worse, resolved, or inactive. Then we have a note field right here, and this data in this note field will display in the red assessment problem menu and in the clinical summary document and the CCD communication documents. So bottom line, this information is going to display in communication documents. And then when we look down here into the other lens findings, this data would display in the exam user interface. Now when we select right and left lens options, we have some options here. We can select the right eye only, the left eye only, or both eyes. Or we can select the right eye and the left eye. Of importance to note is if you select the right and the left eyes, it will display the right and the left eyes separately in the user interface. And if you have separate treatment or finding protocols, it will display an assessment separately. But if you have the right and the left eye selected together, it will document in the coding area as a bilateral code if a bilateral code exists. And that's to support proper ICD documentation. Finally, let's review the annotation tool. Select the annotation icon, then scroll and select, drag and drop problems from the subcategory or the Smart Search lists. The history icon can be selected to review or use prior drawings in the current exam. Additional annotations can be made with the drawing pencil. Other findings can be made in the note area, and they're going to display in the exam user interface. Additional problems can be added by dragging and dropping, and you can check this status, severity, location, and make it a finding or diagnosis only. Make a note that will also display in the patient communications, and also make a note that will appear in the user interface. The annotation tool is a great way to educate the patient while documenting the problem at the same time. This concludes our detailed review of Uprise EHR Physical Exam. Physical Exam represents the heart and soul of SmartTouch, an industry-first proprietary tool that can streamline your exam and get you home quicker to enjoy your family, friends, and life. I hope you enjoyed our review, and I encourage you to contact me anytime for questions, comments, or concerns. I hope you can join our next tutorial, and I also would encourage you to join the Uprising. See you in the cloud.